Understanding barely, the adverb for close calls. Imagine you're running late for an important exam. You rush to the test center, your heart pounding. As you reach for the door handle, you hear the proctor say, "We're about to begin." You made it, but just barely. Today, we're exploring the word barely, a term that often describes close calls and minimal margins. Word type: barely is an adverb. This means it modifies verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs, helping to describe how an action is performed or to what degree. Meaning: barely means only just or by the smallest amount. It indicates that something is only achieved with great difficulty or to a very small extent. When we say something barely happened, we mean it almost didn't happen at all. Word history. The word barely comes from the Old English word barelice, which meant openly or clearly. Over time, its meaning shifted to describe things that are just barely visible or detectable, leading to its current usage. Antonyms. Some opposites of barely include easily, completely, fully, and abundantly. While barely suggests a minimal amount, these words indicate sufficiency or excess. Synonyms. Words with similar meanings to barely include scarcely, hardly, just, only, just, and narrowly. These terms all convey the idea of something occurring to a very small degree or with great difficulty. Examples used in sentences. Let's look at how barely can be used in different contexts. The old car barely made it up the steep hill. She barely passed the exam, scoring just 1 point above the failing grade. I can barely hear you. Could you speak up, please? The child barely touched his dinner, worrying his parents. We barely caught the train, jumping on just as the doors were closing. Common errors in use. One common mistake is confusing barely with nearly. While barely means just enough or almost not, nearly means almost. For example, the glass is barely full means it contains very little liquid, while the glass is nearly full means it's almost completely filled. Another error is using barely with negative statements. For instance, I barely didn't finish my homework is incorrect. Instead, you should say, I almost didn't finish my homework. Lastly, remember that barely is an adverb, not an adjective. So saying the barely man survived is incorrect. The correct form would be the man barely survived. Understanding and correctly using words like barely can significantly improve your IELTS score. It allows you to express nuanced meanings and demonstrate a good grasp of English vocabulary. Practice using barely in your own sentences, and soon you'll be using it with confidence in your speaking and writing tasks.